I was packing my belongings, my parents quietly standing in my hostel room. Their faces held a faint look of disappointment. Disappointed because I was leaving both the hostel and the institute, barely 2 weeks after offline classes had begun. The room was silent, but inside me, a storm raged, one I couldn't explain to anyone. What had happened? It all started when the first wave of COVID began to subside and hostels reopened. I had mixed emotions. Excitement at finally attending offline classes after so long, and nervousness about leaving home for the first time. My parents and I visited several affiliated hostels to find a suitable one. The first option was a nightmare, cramped rooms without windows and shared bathrooms. We quickly moved on and found another hostel that seemed better. I had no idea that this place would turn into a living nightmare. On my first day, I focused on settling in. My room was the last one at the far end of the second floor, chosen for its quietness so I could study without distractions. That night, around 1 a.m., I lay in bed, struggling to sleep. The silence was oppressive. My laptop, which was in sleep mode and charging on the desk, suddenly started playing an audio clip. The voice of my physics teacher filled the room, startling me. After the initial shock, I rationalized it. It must have been a random video left open. I turned off the laptop and fell asleep. Little did I know this would be my last decent sleep for weeks. The next morning, I woke at 5:30 a.m. for the mandatory exercise session. As I left my room, the floor warden, a kind woman, remarked, "Beta, why were you studying all night? If you need to, at least use headphones." I could hear faint sounds during my rounds. Confused, I replied that I hadn't studied at night and assumed she was mistaken. The same thing happened the next night, but this time the warden was annoyed. She threatened to confiscate my laptop if it happened again. I argued with her, sure that I'd turned it off. Somehow, the issue was resolved. Later that day, a senior student, a second-year dropper who'd been living there for years, approached me. After some small talk, he said, "You're braver than I thought. Doesn't it scare you staying in that room?" I was confused and asked him what he meant. That's when he dropped the bombshell. Apparently, my room had been sealed for 2 years. A former student had taken his life there after being publicly humiliated by our physics teacher in front of 200 students for incomplete work and failing to answer questions. The realization hit me like a brick. That random physics lecture playing on my laptop, the warden's complaints, it was all connected. But I had no choice but to stay in that room. Financial constraints and the warden's refusal to change my room left me trapped. The following nights became unbearable. Every creak of the wardrobe, every faint knock on the walls or under the bed felt like it would stop my heart. But the final straw came on the 5th night. At 2 a.m., a deafening bang erupted from the external bathroom door adjacent to my room, a door only I had access to. The noise was so loud that the warden came running and scolded me again. Desperate for a solution, I decided to play soft prayers on my phone while sleeping, hoping it would calm my nerves. That night, I noticed something chilling. My phone, which I'd left near my bed, was now on the opposite side of the room. At that moment, I couldn't stay silent anymore. I ran to the warden's desk, borrowed her phone, and called my parents, begging them to take me home. Hearing the fear in my voice, they agreed to come the next morning. I spent that night sitting in a chair near the warden's desk, my eyes glued to the corridor leading to my room. I never told my parents what really happened, and I never will. As I packed my belongings for the final time, my parents stood by, their disappointment clear. The room was quiet, but the storm inside me was louder than ever.